All right, welcome to another episode of Panel of Amateurs. I'm Peter.
I'm Terry.
And today we're going to start out with a little retraction from last episode. I just wanted to start out by saying I'm sorry. Out of the Box was on Disney Channel, not Nickelodeon like I thought, or PBS, I think I said at one point. So if you're wondering what I'm talking about, go ahead and go back and watch episode 1 last week, where we talk about shows we watched as kids and also The Magnificent Seven.
I want to follow up last week's episode by saying that I want to apologize to Denzel Washington. I started out saying that Denzel would never win an Oscar again because of how good he is. And then a few days later, I went back and watched a trailer for a movie he has coming out called Fences. Couldn't tell you what it was about, but I would give him the Oscar just based off of his trailer voiceover. Did you get a chance to watch the trailer?
Yeah, no, I did watch it when you mentioned it to me. And I don't know what the film's about either. It looks like it's a coming-of-age story for Denzel, but not, usually coming-of-age stories are teenager to adult. It's like he's becoming an old man and realizing where his life is gone, but it looks heavy. I'm just going to say heavy.
Like I said,
yeah.
From the trailer alone, I'd throw him in the ring for an Oscar again. Viola Davis was in the trailer for probably 15 seconds.
She just throws down.
It was really heavy, and I think that's one I'm going to have to catch later on in the year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a film you're going to bring some tissues to, probably. No matter who you are. I don't care who you are.
Viola Davis certainly needed them.
Yeah, she had a lot of mucus come out her nose.
Right. The other thing I want to talk about is Nerdist posted an article last week by an Eric Diaz. Actually, it was posted in June, but they retweeted it, and I happened to read it, and this is going to answer a question that I've been discussing and debating since I've been in high school. I had a best friend named Pooh. We were on a football team together, and it answers the age-old question of who would win in a fight between Superman and the Hulk. A university in the UK, some science students came together, and they made a list of the most powerful superheroes in the universe using science. So this makes it true.
It's scientific, yeah.
This is scientific, makes it true. It can never be refuted again. And in this article...
Except that science is refuted constantly.
Hey, Peter... Let me have my moment.
That's the point of science.
Let me have my moment, Peter. It says in this article that Superman may have the greatest chance of winning any fight over any superhero in the superhero universe. That includes DC heroes, includes Marvel heroes, any comic that you want to bring up. This article says that Superman would be the most powerful superhero in the known universe. It also goes on to, and how this relates to last week, is I made a comment about how Batman, they always want to power up Batman and give him a fighting chance in any battle. This article states that Batman would have the least chance of winning any fight in the superhero universe.
And that just goes back to what we were saying last week, that he's a regular guy, and that's why we can relate to him. It's okay.
Yeah, but he'd lose.
Right, but he'd lose.
But he'd lose.
No chance of winning.
I will say that they didn't include heroes like Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, Jean Grey, just because it says that their powers are pretty much whatever the writers need them to be at any given moment. So it kept those heroes out of it. But like I said, you can go on to Nerdist.com and find that article. We'll also leave the link in the description down below.
All right, well, let's get started with this week's episode. Theme song goes here. Don't forget to put the theme song in.
So this week we wanted to start off by discussing our question of the week from last week, in which we were asking our fans, what are your favorite superhero teams growing up or currently?
Right, and so we got a lot of responses on our Facebook page. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Panel of Amateurs. I would want to say .com at the end of that, but it's not. There's no .com.
There's no .com.
Yeah.
You can also find us on Twitter, which you can follow us on Twitter.
At Panel of Amateurs.
At Panel of Amateurs.
But so some of the answers that we got, the first one, it was the U.S. military. They are heroes.
They are a great superhero team.
Yeah.
And we'll continue
We'll leave it at that. The next one that I have is Hawkman and Hawkwoman. That one, I I don't know too much about the Hawkman and Hawkwoman team up, but I know that they exist. So they
Well,
fly.
if
They
you're
have
judging it
arrows.
based off of the TV show that they're on the CW, it's a horrible team.
What if
I'm almost extremely happy that they kind of wrote them out of the show. Legends of Tomorrow. So they have, in the beginning of the show, they were a major part of the Legends of Tomorrow TV show, but the chemistry between the two actors was horrible. I actually liked the dynamic of the Green Lantern John Stewart and Hawkgirl in the Justice League Unlimited series or the Justice League TV show. I liked their connection a lot better than the actual Hawkman Hawkgirl connection over the years.
All right. Next, we have Deadpool and basically anybody else in the Marvel universe. I think that just comes from the fact that Deadpool makes fun of everybody, so it doesn't matter who he's with; he's just going to make fun of them.
He does, and Marvel does a lot of team ups with him the same way they do Hulk and Wolverine. You'll find a lot of team ups with Wolverine versus this person or Wolverine and this person. But they do that a lot with Deadpool because especially now he's one of their most popular characters. So Deadpool and Spider-Man is a huge one and a really good run that they had in the comics that became really popular.
And next answer we got was Batman and Robin. Now, Batman and Robin, there's multiple incarnations of this team up. We have the Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson. Mm-hmm. We have Bruce Wayne and Jason Todd, which
is probably the least popular.
The least popular.
The fans voted to have him murdered at one point.
And then further on, we had
Dick Grayson Batman, Damian Wayne, which I've got a relative who that is one of the ones he mentioned to me was his most popular incarnation of that team. I would say I will stick with the classic and say if I had to choose from my favorite incarnation of Batman and Robin, I would say it'd be Batman Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson Robin.
And if I had to choose my least favorite, it would be George Clooney Batman and Chris O'Donnell Robin.
You probably get a lot of people that would side with you on that one.
Bat nipples. I mean, yeah.
What else we got?
We also got Dr. Banner and Thor, not from the actual Avengers films or storyline, but from the marketing campaign for Civil War, where Thor and Dr. Banner are not in the film, and so they're living their life as normal people.
Yeah, and they're telling the story of why they weren't around during Civil War.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we have Supergirl and The Flash. Their relationship in the new CW show. Well, was it on the CW yet at this point?
No.
No.
At that time, when they did that crossover, Supergirl was still on CBS.
Right.
And it was weird because they were shooting at different times, so it didn't really line up together for the back-to-back episodes didn't line up on the same week. So you had The Flash go to Supergirl's universe and then on Supergirl. And then 2 weeks later, you had the episode where it shows The Flash leaving on the Flash TV show to go to Supergirl's universe.
That's a little awkward, but the chemistry between the two, it's not bad. It's good stuff. Then we had Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy from everybody's favorite Sponge show.
We can count that, I guess.
Yeah. And then also Batman and Superman. Obviously, you got Justice League. Then we got Batman vs. Superman. We've got multiple. They team up a lot, actually, in the comics. So
they have their own series run. I made a list myself, and I put Superman and Wonder Woman on there. They team up a lot with Batman. They have a comic book series that's called The Trinity. You do have Batman, Superman. They've got a comic run. I think that was one I expected, even with Batman and Robin. Those are two that I really expected. Is there anything on the list that you agree with or that you wish would have been on the list?
Well, I definitely agree with Batman and Robin is one of my favorite hero team ups, but I went for one of my favorite ones that's kind of more off the beaten path, which is Cyclops and Wolverine. Mm-hmm. I just really like their tension and how much they fight, but then when they get together to actually complete a task, everything goes how it's supposed to. I think it's both of them are just control freaks, and that's where the issues come up. But other than that, I think they work really well together.
And I did put X-Men on my list, and I just put the X-Men in general, and that is really, when you've got hundreds of characters to choose from, you can really put them in any order or in any incarnation you want. I like that team dynamic of where, there are certain leaders, but you can pull out one character, put in another character, and how their powers have to, how they're going to have different powers and how those powers work together. So I would include the X-Men as a whole. And that's also one from my childhood, because one of the things that I didn't hear or see on the list was the Avengers. And I think for a lot of people, and someone's going to kill me out there, but I think for a lot of people, the Avengers are really a new thing. They are a lot larger now.
Right.
I'm holding on to my childhood where there were X-Men television series, and I'll be honest, I didn't read a whole lot of Avengers compared to what I got as X-Men, Batman, and Superman growing up. So I think that made a huge impact on what I consider my favorites at this stage.
Right, definitely.
Ninja Turtles was one that, and we talked about it last week, but it was one that I didn't see on there. That would be. And I think people forget that they are superheroes.
Right. They just think of them as teenage, mutants that are ninjas, also, and they're half shells. So
I'm waiting for the turtle power to come out.
Turtle power.
But that's a team. That's a team that I think we all grew up with. That continue to be one of my favorites till this day. Also on my list, I had Darkwing Duck and Gizmo Duck. Some of the best after-school programming.
Let's get dangerous, right?
Absolutely. Some of the best after-school programming from my childhood, certainly. It came up last week again, but that's a team-up that I always enjoyed.
I always actually liked Darkwing Duck. I can't remember the name of the main villain. He's like the electric shooting guy. I'm definitely looking it up right now, though. I learned from last week that I should use IMDb and not just say that I have it.
No, Darkwing Duck was he was kind of a recurring character on the DuckTales series, and then he got his own show. And I always liked when he came over and Gizmo Duck was around, or when Gizmo Duck showed up on his show, even though they tried to say for a while that they weren't in the same universe, and those were two different universes. But they kept showing up on each other's show, so I always liked when they teamed up and worked together.
Megavolt was the guy. I actually liked the villain the most of that show, just because he was a mouse, and then they were ducks, and so it's like, oh, it's like making fun of Disney. I knew that as a kid, but also he shot lightning out of his hands, and I always liked that from the Star Wars Sith characters that can shoot lightning, and this guy can shoot lightning.
They are all with Disney. Maybe those universes. Maybe there's more to that universe than we thought.
Oh man, Megavolt's gonna show up in episode 8.
And speaking of villains, Suicide Squad was on my list, and I really like the Suicide Squad dynamic as taking these villains and digging deeper into their history and their motivations. And again, that goes with X-Men, where you can pull out one, pluck in another. So I feel like when you get stories like that, you can tell more story. The story changes based on the parts or the puzzle pieces and the way they fit in. We always know Superman when he's in a book or a movie. We always know Batman and his story, and how even when he's working with Robin, and even when he's working with Superman, we can see where we automatically know their fundamental differences or what brings them together. But when you've got bad guys with different motivations from different stories, from different rogues galleries coming together to either have to save the day or figure out how they're going to try to get out of the situation without losing their head in the Suicide Squad, I always love that dynamic.
So, Terry, did you see the new Doctor Strange trailer that came out?
I did see the Doctor Strange trailer. I'm excited about the movie coming out. I don't know that this is going to be your standard Marvel fare. I think this is kind of like X-Men. Or not X-Men, but Ant-Man. They're taking a shot. They're going to see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see huge ties to the MCU as far as your Iron Man, Captain Marvel. Just in case this doesn't work, they're not stuck having to continue to further this along into that universe.
Yeah, I saw the trailer, obviously, or else I wouldn't have asked you about it. But this one was a lot shorter. It was almost like teaser trailer length, and then they threw in the who's on first kind of joke there at the end. But I think that it shows that there's going to be a little bit, just a tiny bit of humor. But I feel like this film is going to be a lot more like Inception, where you're not really sure what reality they're in anymore. Like which universe is actually the real universe at this point.
And I think they did, at the beginning of this trailer, they did a good job of bringing that up. And this is probably a fallback for Marvel, is that no matter what happens or the reception this movie gets, they can go, oh, that was a different universe. We brought it up. These are different universes. They talked about the Avengers, but they don't necessarily lie in the same reality.
Yeah, and then in the trailer they say, it doesn't have to make sense, which kind of gives them the free reign to do whatever they want because it doesn't have to make sense. So that's interesting.
Fall TV also is starting up this week. We had some shows come back last week. Are you excited for the fact that Supergirl is now on the CW? There will be more continuity with The Flash,
And
Legends
Arrow.
of Tomorrow, and Arrow.
Yeah, definitely. I think CW's done a really good job of keeping the stories in the same universe, and so like the events that happen in one show affect the other show, which is kind of an interesting thing to see, and it makes viewers want to but watch and see how everything is connected. I think that's something that viewers like a lot now, is how is everything connected.
I think I'm interested to see how they clean up why characters such as, if Supergirl has been around, or especially Superman, because in the Supergirl universe, Superman has already been established and been around
24 years.
With some of the major events that have been happening in the Arrow, in the Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, where was Superman? And even this year, they said they're going to make references to Batman. And there was a commercial for I believe it was The Flash, where they made the comment. No, it was actually in Supergirl where they made the comment, I'm moving back to Gotham. So we know that these characters exist. Where have they been? Why has there been no mention of them in the previous show? So I'm interested to see how they clean that up.
Well, it's easy. The internet was down. That's how that's the only way you don't know about things, right? Oh, sorry, internet was down, so I don't know that it existed. It's okay.
The internet's been down for 5 years or so.
Yeah, it's been down.
Even though we've seen them use it. So, and that's the biggest thing. I think with Flash kind of doing their Flashpoint arc, I really believe that they'll use that to clean up and kind of combine the universes. Because with Supergirl and the Flash and their crossover, they made it known that these were they've been on two different Earths. And Supergirl doesn't exist on the Earth with the Flash and the Arrow. When they combine those Earths, how are they going to bring those titles together and bring those heroes that should have probably been around for these major events that weren't there before?
And that starts this week, right? Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, they all come back this week?
They all come back this week.
Nice. Another show that I'm kind of interested in that's not really comic book related, but it starts on NBC tonight, I believe. It's called Timeless. It's got the guy from ER. He played Luca. If ER was a big show that I watched when I was a kid, interesting enough, is on NBC, and now they brought him back to be on NBC for a new show. But it also has Malcolm Barrett from Better Off Ted, and then Matt Frewer, I believe his last name is. He played Max Headroom, which is a 1980s film made in Australia. There's a lot of references to it in the 80s, but anyways, Timeless is a show about going back in time and changing history and what happens with that. I think it looks really, really well done, at least from the trailer that I saw.
I think it's interesting. I love the time travel theme. Those movies always suck me right in. My question, and I was watching the trailer the other day, is if they've changed something, there would have been no need for you to go back. So you automatically know that if you're still there, then you win.
Yeah, and this is a conversation you and I have had many times about time travel and multiple universes, because if something has changed in history, then it's already affecting the present. And so if you are already doing the thing that you wanted to do right now, then you've already won in the past.
There you go.
So really, we haven't changed anything. And also, I mean, I know in X-Men Days of Future Past, they addressed this with Wolverine having memories from both times. But for the idea of time travel, if you're going back in time and then all of a sudden you're back in the present, do you remember everything that's changed and versus what's already been there? Like, do you have two realities in your brain? That's something I don't know if they're going to tackle on this show or not.
Well, I'll give it a shot. There's a few other things that started this week that I'm interested in. There's some things that ended, and we'll talk about that in a future episode with the Fear the Walking Dead ending this week. There's a new show, Westworlds, that started on HBO this past weekend. It's really genre heavy. The trailers, from the trailers, I can't really understand what I'm getting into, but it's got a lot of buzz on the internet, and that's one that we'll visit in a future episode. But that's another one that I think is going to be a really interesting show.
Nice. All right. Well, on to the next topic.
The next thing we're going to cover is Peter and I had a question for one another about underrated shows that we watched that we feel like didn't get the accolades or the views that we feel like they should have. I've got two shows. These aren't necessarily shows that are still on the air, and this doesn't mean that they weren't popular. I just feel like with my two shows that they should have been more popular, probably got longer runs than what they actually did.
Right.
The first show that I feel like was really underrated, it was a sci-fi show that started back around 2010. It was a remake of a British show by the same name called Being Human. Basically, it answers the proverbial question of what happens when a vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost walk into a bar.
Proverbial question, as if it's something everyone's going to ask that question.
Everyone's asking that question. What happens when you mix those things together? So basically, the gist of the show is there's a vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost that are living in a brownstone in Boston. Vampires are kind of like the mob in this area. They're in the shadows. They've got, if you remember Blade, where they had this whole underground vampire community. So it's kind of in that vein. You've got the werewolves, who are kind of the lower end of the mystical figures,
food chain.
And then you've got a ghost who in the beginning of the series doesn't realize she's a ghost. She doesn't realize she's dead. She was murdered by her boyfriend in this brownstone. And when the werewolf and the vampire move in, they decide that they're going to stay there, become roommates. They meet her.
It sounds like it should have been an animated series.
It was really good. It was the best show on Sci-Fi at the time, and it got canceled after 4 seasons. I think they were moving. It was when they were Sci-Fi, and then they went to Sci-Fi, the SYF.
Oh yeah,
FY thing, and they went in a different direction for the entire network. But it starred Sam Witwer, who is really popular from the Star Wars series Force Unleashed. There was a video game where he was Darth Vader's apprentice, breakout star in that area, and I feel like he would get more work, but he kind of gets stuck in this. He kind of gets put in this area where you've got your Star Wars fans who want you to revisit him in that universe. He just hasn't found a role where it really, really puts him on the map. But I think that show should have got a few more seasons, especially being on Sci-Fi Network. And if you look at some of the shows today that are getting 10-year runs, I felt like they really dropped the ball on letting that show go.
What else you got on your list there?
Justice League Unlimited. It got 2 seasons on the Cartoon Network. You can say it had a third. The third season had like 3 episodes.
Yeah, that's not really a season.
I'll say it had 2 seasons. It focused heavily on other members of the Justice League. So you didn't get a bunch of episodes with the big 3, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Your episodes focused on people like Stargirl, Supergirl, some of your background deeper cuts from the Justice League universe and their adventures. My favorite episode is actually where they had a superhero fight club, and they did this thing where they drugged superheroes or some way they brainwashed them into basically UFC fighting one another. So they've got all these people, they've got all these superheroes in a cage fighting. And again, these aren't higher power level superheroes,
right?
But their trump card is somehow they've drugged up Wonder Woman. And the look on the faces of the heroes in the cage when Wonder Woman drops in is oh crap, we're all about like this has
It's,
really
it's,
gotten
the,
serious.
it's the end of it. We're done now.
This has really gotten serious. She's got to murder all of us.
That's awesome.
But now this was I felt like this is one of the best. It followed up after, Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series, the Justice League animated cartoons on the Cartoon Network. But I feel like there was really no reason for them to end it. They just did, and they wanted to focus on things like Teen Titans, which
I just rolled my eyes just so everyone knows. I don't care for that Teen Titans show very much.
and neither do I. So I don't understand, and this seems to happen with the Justice League cartoons that they put out there, where I don't know if they're not getting a big enough push, that they just don't stick around for long, that they decide to move on after a season or two. But those are two of my most underrated shows. Neither one are on the air anymore. I'm not saying that these are the most underrated shows of all time. I'm saying these are two shows that if I could bring back, those are two shows that I'd jump right on to bring back.
So for myself, I had three. One is just kind of unnecessary to say. You need to say the show. It's a Firefly. Everyone knows that Firefly is one season long. It should have been at least 4 seasons. There's a lot of stories to tell in space, especially when you're cowboys that are trying to do what's right, but also make money. And the Nathan Fillion's character Malcolm Reynolds, he just one of the best leading roles. At least the show should have lasted a lot longer. I'll just leave it at that.
Do you think Firefly was before its time? Like, you put that show on TV
definitely,
right now,
definitely,
and it's guaranteed 5 years.
Yeah, Fox,
5 seasons.
Bring it back, Fox. Just right now, boom. And people, well, I don't know if they bring it back now, if it's going to do well because of the cult following that is created, or if it'll do well on its own because of the story. They can't bring it back because they killed Wash in Serenity. Spoiler alert if you didn't know that. Also, if you don't know who Wash is, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think that's a good point. I think Firefly could have done a lot better now had they brought it out. It's been almost 10 years since it aired, so it definitely about before its time. But the two that I wanted to bring up were first, Outsourced. This is a show that is based off of a film with the same name, Outsourced. It's about a young executive who has been transferred to India to open a call center and train everybody there, and they're selling like American novelty items like giant Uncle Sam hats and whoopee cushions.
Just what you need in India. Giant Uncle Sam hat.
Greatest things. But it stars Ben Rappaport, who does a great job being the comedic relief. You might know him from Hope Springs. I'm not sure what else he's been in. That's kind of the first thing that's on IMDb, so we're just going to go with that. But the only thing about that show that it feels like the writers were forced to end it. I feel like they didn't get the viewership that they wanted, and so the executives just said, "Okay, we're gonna end this show. You got 3 episodes," and they took that and they crammed everything in and just tied up all of the loose ends, and there was no room for a second season. So that's one I think it could have lasted longer. Maybe only 2 more seasons at the most. And that's something too about a lot of these shows is that they should run their course and then they should stop. Like shows that get dragged on too long. How I Met Your Mother is my number one pet peeve for that. Is that show should have ended like season 6, and it went way too long.
Smallville is a show like that for me. First 4 seasons of Smallville, some of the best TV that I'd seen at the time. And after that, it just fell off a cliff. They didn't have enough stories to tell after that. They were just milking it basically for the next 6 years. I mean, they got 10 seasons, and the first 4 were really great. The last 6, like I said, just dove over that cliff.
Same with How I Met Your Mother. They got 9 seasons, and really after the 6th season, it's over. You don't really need to watch any more of it. So that's not an underrated show for sure. It's an overrated show. It's a different topic. But then my last underrated show is Community, which is the story of a band of misfits in a community college that somehow get put together because Jeff, the main character, wants to sleep with Britta, and so he creates a fake study group, and all of a sudden it becomes a real study group, and then they become friends, and it's a good storyline. But that show has a cult following really for the first 3 seasons, and then it kind of went away, and then the fans made it come back for the 4th season, and then it kind of got forced into the 5th and 6th season because of the hashtag 6 seasons in a movie that was created off of a one-liner in the show. But I still feel like a lot of people don't know about that show at all, and it should have been it should have had a larger viewership, I think.
It's one of those shows where I've caught a few episodes, never really caught on for me. The episodes that I've seen I thought were really funny. I saw the episode where I think they were having a paintball competition on campus. Hilarious. And I think today we brought this up last week with subscription services like Netflix, Hulu, they should really think about saving some of these shows.
Well, and they tried to save it on Yahoo, but
pulled off network.
When Yahoo brought it back, it was just not the same. I don't know if they don't have the same writers anymore or what happened. They got their 6th season. It was like 12 episodes long, and it was just kind of like mediocre television. So
I think that, especially for subscription services, pulling some of those shows, especially when there's a big fan outcry, to bring back some of those shows. They've done it with a few. Arrested Development is back on Netflix. Now, I haven't seen any of the episodes. I don't know if
that's a sore spot for sure.
I haven't seen any of the episodes on Netflix, but that is a way to take properties that at the very least. Netflix, if you look on there today, besides their popular shows, they've got a lot of Netflix originals. Mm-hmm. Not all that stuff is as popular as Orange is the New Black, or any of your Marvel's Defender series.
Or House of Cards.
Which is excellent. If you haven't seen House of Cards, go check it out. It's on Netflix. But if you bring back some of these shows, or these shows that are maybe getting canceled, if there's a huge outcry from the fans to bring that show back, you might look into that, because you have automatic viewers,
right,
just from that show alone. You're going to get clicks, and you're going to get subscription services from people who want to go on and continue the story of those characters.
Even if the story you bring back is not a story that fans like, Arrested Development season 4, it's not good. I think they waited too long is what it was. They waited too long to bring it back, and the actors in their own life had been through enough things that they were just kind of there and not in the story anymore.
And they brought back Voltron this year, which it's a remake. They didn't really bring it back, but you can do things like that with these subscription services where you're taking a shot in the dark with stories that have built-in fan bases. One of the other ones out there is Young Justice. It's another tied to the Justice League series. It's just a younger version of the characters. So you've got Superboy instead of Superman. You have Artemis instead of Green Arrow. They're teenagers as opposed to the older versions of the older counterparts to these characters, where you've got a fan outcry to bring these stories back. Young Justice is one that I could have included in my underrated shows that I didn't, but it is one of those that I could see Netflix taking a chance on a show like that and bringing some viewers back to the table that are already crying out to get more in this universe.
On to the next thing.
And this is the topic that everyone's here for this week, is our Luke Cage review. And we'll jump right into it, tell you what we thought, what we liked, what we didn't like, and go from there.
Well, and we should mention also, first of all, obviously spoilers. If you don't want to hear any spoilers, in the comment, or not the comments, but in the description below, there's a time code. Just go ahead and click on the next time code to pass all the Luke Cage reviews. Also, we should mention that we're only going to be reviewing the first 6 episodes. So if you've already watched all 12 episodes, then you're going to know more than we do, which is good. That's good for you.
So, Peter, how much do you know about Luke Cage? Or how much did you know about Luke Cage prior to this whole thing?
Prior to a week before it aired, nothing. I had no idea. I mean, I think he had a spot in Daredevil where he gets shot with a shotgun.
Jessica Jones.
Oh, Jessica Jones, yeah. So I knew that he existed, kind of. I really didn't know anything. I did a little bit of research before the show started because I didn't want to go in blind, not knowing what was going on. But really, I still only knew maybe about like a 20% of who he was and what was going on.
Well, and I'm going to say that it's probably that way from a lot of people. Some people will come into the show going, oh, well, I knew everything there was to know about Luke Cage. Obviously, there are those people out there. But for the most part, he hasn't been a huge character in the Marvel universe. He's been kind of their B list of characters is what I'll say for Luke Cage. He has led an Avengers team. He first appeared in Luke Cage Hero for Hire #1 in 1972. He was created by Archie Goodwin, John Romita Sr., and George Tuska. As a parallel to the rising popularity of the blaxploitation era of movies where your blackness was kind of a character trait.
Like Blackula?
Like Blackula, Shaft, those movies like that. So he was created after those movies started becoming popular. Marvel needed another. They had Black Panther already, but they wanted something to like I said,
like
parallel
stand on their own, right?
Parallel with the popularity of those movies at the time. You watched the episodes with him in Jessica Jones?
I just saw the clips on, so I didn't see.
He didn't have a huge role in that series. I think his wife's backstory, and we hear a little bit about her in the show. And I want everybody from this point on to really be careful for spoilers if you haven't watched any of the episodes. We'll be going over the first couple episodes, so you want to move on if you don't want to know anything from this point on. But Reva, his wife, she played a major role in the story arc in Jessica Jones, and that brought him into conflict with Jones at times, but for the most part he was kind of her sidekick for a few episodes during that season. But that led to Luke getting his own series, and he'll also return in the Defenders miniseries that Netflix has planned. So what did you think of the show so far?
I just watched the first 6 episodes, like we talked about, but I've really enjoyed every episode, including, the first episode. It started out really kind of slow. We were just building up the story of Luke Cage, especially for people who don't know what's going on. It's a good episode to just come in and say, "Oh, this is going to be a good show," I think. And then they go in, and at the end of that episode, I think it's when the fist breaking on his jaw scene is, and that's the iconic scene from the trailer that everybody's waiting for, when he's getting his first fight and the guy punches him in the face and his hand just shatters. That was like, yes, this is what I wanted. This is what I came for.
Now that scene, I will say, it did make me think back to an episode that he was with Jessica Jones, and I began to think about, he was in a fight with some gangsters and they were hitting him and nothing was breaking. So I just wonder how they went from, hey, you can't punch him, it doesn't hurt him, to you're going to be breaking your wrist if you hit this guy full on. Not something that bothered me a whole lot, but it did make me think.
In later episodes, in different episodes, he doesn't, or later episodes, he doesn't break people's bones when they hit him. I think they just did that for to drag you in. And there's a lot of things in the first episode. Just didn't
drink enough milk that
yeah,
time.
really.
Okay, I get it.
And there's a lot of things in the first episode too that are really, we're gonna pull viewers in, and then we're gonna tell them the story. Like the strip club scene and the sex scene. They're there. How much do they add to the plot? Not a whole lot. You can skip them and you're not going to miss out. I mean, just knowing that they existed is good enough, really. But I feel like they did that in episode 1 to really pull in viewers. That they're like, oh, we got sex and violence, we're good to go. Mm-hmm. But other than that, those are my only dislikes about the first 6 episodes. Other than that, everything has been fantastic.
And I'll agree with you on the start to the show. I felt was slower than what they did when they jumped in with Jessica Jones and Daredevil. Especially Daredevil, I felt like they got the action moving right from the bat. You knew that this was different than your regular Marvel standard fare.
Right.
You knew that this show was grittier, tougher, and I feel like they eased us in a little bit slower, with Luke Cage. Eventually they got to the kind of, it's a staple of the Netflix series where there's a hallway fight scene. They got
Right.
they got to that part, which was cool in itself. And that's, besides the character Shades, that is the only bad thing I really have to say about the series to start with, is that it did start kind of slow for me, and I'm not on board yet with Theo Rossi's character.
Yeah,
Shades.
let's
I
talk
don't
about
know
Shades.
what
Well, I
we're
mean,
getting into.
I don't know what is going on with this character because, like I said, I did some research, and the character Shades from the comic is another inmate in prison with Luke Cage, and he is trying to like instigate riots, trying to kind of be in like the top dog in the prison, but then after that he's not is not the same character that they're portraying in the Netflix show. In the Netflix show, he seems to be the stool pigeon for some kingpin. And he was in prison with Luke Cage. We see that in episode 4 when we get some backstory.
Which is my favorite episode so far.
Definitely is awesome, super good episode. But there's not really any indication of who Shades is now. He's obviously been changed from who he was in the comic books, but there's nothing that says, oh, this is who he is and this is where he's going as a character. He's just kind of there right now, it seems like.
Yeah, I just don't get where, I don't understand at this point in the series where Theo Rossi is going with the character. He gives me a Horatio feel to him, that he has to pull down his glasses and deliver his lines and whisper them into someone's ear. Like, I just don't understand I don't understand his motivations for being there. It seems like he's just there for no reason, and that Theo is sometimes trying too hard to be cool. Like I said, those are two small gripes about the series so far, but the Shades character, I don't understand at this point.
Right. Well, and that's probably enough with the negative stuff. I got a lot of good stuff to say about the show too. First being the use of the music. The music in the show. First, we've talked in the past off the podcast, Harry and I, about the music that is in like Marvel movies now and the DC movies, and how it's not iconic. It's not something that you walk out of the theater humming, or you're walking around town later on that day and you think, oh man, remember that song? It was super cool.
Or if you hear somebody whistling that theme song, you're not going to know. From today's movies and TV shows, there's no iconic soundtrack that'll bring you back in. But this changes. Now, granted, most of these are from New York hip hop. All of the titles for the episodes are based off of Gangstar songs. Mm-hmm. I thought the music really did a great job of adding to the story and pushing the story further along. Yeah,
especially when they use it as the montages of the fights. There's a scene where there's an artist performing in the club that's owned by Cottonmouth, the main villain, and then while the song's being played, there's interlaced shots of what's happening outside in the streets. Luke Cage is taking down hordes of enemies, or there's episode, I think it's episode 4 again. Man, episode 4 is really the best episode out of these first 6.
I loved it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I'm going to reference from it, I think. But where we have the nurse character, I can't remember her name right now, but she's coming back into Harlem from being in Hell's Kitchen, and she gets her purse grabbed, and that's during one of the montage scenes. And so every time there's a good violent scene, it's being backed with music from the club, and it's keeping that momentum going throughout the episode.
And Claire is in. She's
Claire. That's
the nurse. She is in each of the Defenders series so far. She's been in Jessica Jones. She was in both seasons of Daredevil, which all these shows you can go on and catch on Netflix. I also thought with the music, again, the music played a huge role in the series. They did a good job of showing not only how the music was moving the story, but how it played a huge role in the lives of the characters. From you've got your 70s R&B to your 90s hip hop. They don't do a whole lot of new era rap. Which
Not really.
We don't get into that, how bad that can be. But they did a good job of showing, there's a lot of references to Biggie Smalls. There's obviously the painting.
Right.
And I even think that with the Cottonmouth character, there are a lot of shots of him just underneath the crown of the Biggie painting to paint that picture of him being the top dog.
Right, and there's the scene where he's talking about how everybody wants to be the king, and that's the one that's supposed to be there. Like, you're supposed to see that he's wearing the crown.
Yeah.
But there are so many other shots where he's just standing there, and you're like, oh, well, there's the crown. He's definitely in charge.
It's really painting that picture,
right?
That this guy, he is the guy when it comes to that. But I love the music. I love the use of the music to push the scenes along. Their choices for the music they would include, like I said, it's not all 90s era hip hop. It's not all 70s R&B. They really, really did a great job, and I'm interested to see in future seasons if they still use that era of music, or if they try to push it along in different ways. With any series. At this point, I'm not saying anything that is crazy out there, but Cottonmouth's probably not going to last the entire season. Outside of the club setting, what will you use as the drive for the music and the emotion that music that they use to put into the series?
That's an interesting thought. So Terry, what do you think about the storyline change, the backstory change for Luke Cage? In the comic, his powers were given as an experiment, whereas in episode 4 we find out that his powers were given to him by accident when they were trying to save his life. I mean, it's still the same doctor experimentation kind of situation.
I don't think they changed it enough to where anyone should take issue with it. I think that there are, and like I said, this goes back to episode 4. I would say, even if you're new to the character, you can start at episode 4 and then go back and watch the first 3, because I think that'll hook you in also. But I think that it wasn't changed to the point where you're getting a completely different character or a completely different origin story. In the comics, I'm almost certain that he went into his experiment thinking one thing would happen, and the same security guard or prison guard jumped in and sabotaged it, and his powers were still an accident.
Right.
So I don't think that they changed it to the point where even huge Luke Cage fans or Luke Cage scholars will be upset with the direction that they took the character in. I think that with they don't have him walking around in a yellow shirt or
except for in episode 4 they have that nod.
They do nod to his early days, but they aren't forced into a corner by having to have him be in that costume. The same thing goes with they changed Daredevil's costume some, love it or hate it. They're not forcing themselves to have to stick to what you saw on paper, but it still works.
Right. Well, and they use the hoodie. It still has yellow lining. It still has the his main costume or outfit from the original comics is yellow and black or yellow and blue with jeans, and it still has that same feel. He's got the same color palette ish.
And let's be honest, he said it in the episode, he looked ridiculous.
Yeah, he looked ridiculous.
If you would have made him run around in that costume.
No one would be afraid of a man in a unbuttoned yellow shirt with a silver headband.
It was a blouse.
It was a blouse.
He was in a blouse.
Yeah.
and a silver headband. So I'm glad they were able to get away from that. I will say that afro in episode 4 was out of control.
Well, I mean, he hadn't showered in a long time, so it happens.
Well, then Reva, his wife, was out of control, because how do you fall in love with that?
Yeah.
you know she loves him for who he is, because he looks like the Wolfman.
He
in those prison
looks
scenes.
Horrible.
I'm sure that's how he won a lot of those prison scene fights.
He probably just scared them.
People didn't want to get close to him because he smelled horribly, and they couldn't tell whether he was a werewolf or not. But no, episode 4 was really great. It continued to build build the tension. His current, I guess we'll say the present Luke was trapped underground after taking a rocket to the face, basically, in a building. And it used a lot of that story to go back and tell his origin story. I also think that it was waiting to the 4th episode to tell the origin story was genius, because you'd already drawn in your subscribers or drawn in your audience, and now we get to go back and find out how we got to this point.
Right, and Luke Cage really, the research that I've done now since wanting to watch the show, he can stand on his own without even knowing the origin story. It's really cool to watch a guy who's not in a costume. He's just a normal guy that sees injustice and goes out and stops it. And he also has this power of, being bulletproof, and you can't really hurt him. So that's an added bonus. But it's really interesting to see just a seeming normal guy go out and take care of business.
I do wonder how they're going to, because he's not hiding.
Right.
He's not doing this stuff. Some of the things that he's doing is in the middle of the night with his hoodie on.
Some of it's in the middle of the day. Like
some of these things are
all
in the
of episode 3 is in the middle of the day.
How are they going to address this? And they did make it a point to say and to show that it fits into the larger Marvel universe, where they make nods to the Avengers movies, the event, as they keep calling it, that happened in New York City. But how are they going to address the fact that he is not hiding? People are getting cell phone footage of him taking pictures. How are they going to address the fact that when the people start calling, sooner or later he's going to get letters from someone wanting them to save his cat, their cat, or come get their dog out of a tree.
His Twitter account's going to be blowing up.
His Twitter account. Can you imagine the likes he's getting right now?
Yeah,
the subscribers he's getting right now. If you like Luke Cage, come subscribe to Luke Cage, then come over and subscribe to us, and we'll keep you posted on the tales of
happenings.
His happenings.
So I know that the original comic series of his standalone only lasted 17 issues. Do you think that, we've only watched the first 6 episodes. Do you think that Netflix is going to be able to have a long running series with this, or is it going to be just like a 2-season show and then they're going to go into that mini series of the Defenders? Like, what do you foresee?
Well, I think that at the heart of the story, it's a cop movie. Or a cop show. You get a lot of Misty Knight in the show. And I think telling it from that ground level, the show is considerably gritty.
Right.
You're getting this ground level hero show where, like you said, he's kind of a normal guy for the most part. He's got real world problems, but he's bulletproof.
Yeah.
And I think as long as the superhero genre continues to do well and they're telling good stories, and that has a big part of what it is are you going to continue to tell good stories, or do you get to the point where you just start mailing in episodes?
Right.
And that's where you lose viewers. I think with the comic, the popularity started to dwindle down when the blaxploitation era films started to lose popularity, and they combined Luke Cage's character with the Iron Fist character, because at that time the Iron Fist character was built on the back of the Kung Fu era films being popular, and when those two eras of films started to lose their popularity, they were looking for a way to bolster the popularity of those two characters, so they combined them together. I foresee at some point them coming up with a Luke Cage Iron Fist Heroes for Hire show where they just do those two characters, throw in Jessica Jones because again, spoilers, but she has a baby with Luke Cage. So you're going to end up having to tie these shows together anyway. And how can you have a Jessica Jones if they follow that same storyline where her and Luke Cage get together, have a child, without making Luke Cage look like a douchebag for being on his own TV series and not really in a...
not being there as a father.
Not being there as a father. So how do you're going to have to tie some of these together anyway. And I think that's eventually where they're going to go. They're going to have their Defenders series where they bring all of those characters together, and then they're going to have their separate individual shows. But I don't think there will be, Luke Cage by himself forever, Iron Fist by himself forever, because the majority of their history now is tied together as opposed to them being a singular entity.
Right, and like we said earlier, that's something that people look for now is the connections between the universes, and so bringing them together is not going to be out of the realm of possibilities. Definitely, I can see that.
So what are some of your other favorite parts of the show?
Oh man, well obviously the takedown of Fort Knox / Crispus Attucks, that's super fun to watch. It's one. I think that's the first time that really Luke steps up and takes care of what he needs to take care of. There's a lot of little things like stopping some thugs here and there, but I really like that he's not he's taking down these thugs and then leaving all the evidence there for the police to expose them. Yeah, I think that's really a kind of a cool thing. I don't know what was your other favorite parts outside of episode 4.
Well, and they make it a point to show that he's not killing people.
Right.
But I'll tell you, he's breaking a lot of
breaking
bones.
a lot of
These people, they're going to the infirmary before they're going to a prison cell. I really like the Cottonmouth character. I think that he's a huge part of this first arc of the series. Like I said, I don't expect him to be around for season 2, but I think, and I'm probably going to butcher this name, Mahershala Ali, who plays that character. He's also in House of Cards, which is another Netflix series. He plays a character called Remy Denton, which I think he's outstanding in that series as well. He's also in The Hunger Games, Part 1 and Part 2, the last 2 movies. But I do believe that his portrayal of Cottonmouth was outstanding and one of the better parts of the first six episodes. I think it's one of those, he did a good job of playing that character who doesn't really know that he knows that he is evil. Well, I don't think he knows that he's evil. I think he thinks that he's doing what's right for himself.
To get where he wants to be.
Where he wants to be. I think he knows that he does bad things to get there, but I don't think that he really understands that he's the bad guy. He's a likable character. Like, there are parts of him that you like, but then there are parts of him where he's throwing people off of buildings and turning around to tell a joke about it that okay, this guy's pretty crazy.
Got some screws loose.
But I really enjoy the scenes, especially the scenes with he and Alfre Woodard. I think they have a tremendous connection on screen, them being related. I can't wait to see if they dig deeper into their relationship with one another as far as their family history. But I do like the chemistry that those two bring forth when they're in scenes together. And I think Alfre Woodard's portrayal as Mariah is great. And so she kind of feels to me like, I want to say that she gives off a vibe as a Stringer Bell kind of me. That's a deep cut from an HBO show called The Wire, where you know that she's a bad guy, but you don't know her place in the bad guy hierarchy.
Right.
And I think at the end of this, she is going to be the major villain of season 1, as opposed to Cottonmouth, who's kind of the front man. You know they're going after Cottonmouth. I think it's going to be Alfre Woodard, who is the last man standing as far as the villains go in the series at the end of it.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about on Luke Cage?
I think in the first couple episodes, the dynamic between, if just talking about Luke Cage, the dynamic between Luke and Pops, I think they did really good setting that up so that we could feel the emotion of the loss of Pops. We knew that when you knew that when they were setting up the whole parlay thing,
nothing was gonna go right.
Nothing was gonna go right. But I do feel like that they did a good job of setting that relationship up. I felt surprised to find out that they weren't going with the he is Luke's father aspect. It was a surprise to me to find out that he was just a guy who took Luke in once Luke ran from Hell's Kitchen from his ongoings in the Jessica Jones series. But that dynamic or that relationship between those two, and I think it's an interesting parallel if you look at Pops and Luke's relationship versus Alfre Woodard and Cottonmouth relationship. But I do like those are two of the relationships that I liked in these first 6 episodes.
So I say everyone should definitely watch this show. You should be aware that this is a TVMA rated show and that there is a lot of language and violence. But I would recommend it for most everyone.
I would highly recommend the show as well. Like I said, it's a good watch. The first 6 episodes so far have drawn me in. It's been hard not to go ahead and jump into the rest. We're saving that for next week. It's been hard not to jump into the rest. The show is intriguing. I think that if you want to follow up even after this show, go check out Jessica Jones. Go check out Daredevil season 1 and season 2. Though they are really doing a great job with the Marvel Universe on Netflix. Not a huge fan of their ABC show,
Agents of
S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
But these Netflix series are outstanding so far. Next question of the week. We want to know, what are your favorite all-time video games? That includes any video games you're playing now. If you could pick up any video game right now and go to town, what would those games be? Let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our videos as well. But let us know down in the comments, if you could pick up a video game right now and jump in, what video game would that be?
And don't hesitate to follow us on Twitter at Panel of Amateurs or at Facebook, Panel of Amateurs as well, where the question will be posted and you can give us your answers there of what is your all-time favorite video game. Like Terry said, what game, if you had the chance right now, would you pick it up and just play for the next couple of hours?
So on next week's show, we're going to discuss the remainder of Luke Cage Season 1, and we'll also give you the news and highlights from the Game Expo that we'll be attending this weekend. The Game Expo, which is in its 8th year, will feature a multitude of artists, writers, developers, and companies representing many different mediums. To go along with the many games and giveaways and sneak peeks, it'll be a great weekend. We're going to be there. If you see us, don't hesitate to come and say hi. We're going to do a lot of interviews, take a lot of pictures. We'll try to bring that all to you next week.
All right, Terry. Well, it's been a good show. I'll see you next week.
Great show. I think we did a lot better than last week.
Yeah.
Come back again. Come see us again.